This is lesson 2-10 in the Algebra Readiness textbook. To begin today's lesson, we're going to do a few review problems. They are listed in your notes packet. And let me show you the review problems. They are these two, these two, these two, and these two. Please work all problems in your notes packet up through these two while the video is on pause. Then come on back to see how you did. We have a test coming up during your next class period, and so this is also going to double as a review. All right, so hopefully you paused the video and gave this a try. The first problem, we're asked to solve the inequality and graph the solution. I see that P is adding 4. I'm going to do the inverse operation and subtract 4 from both sides. P is greater than 5 is what's remaining. On my number line, I put a circle at 5. Numbers greater than 5 extend to the right, and then I ask myself, should I fill in the circle? Well, is 5 greater than 5? The answer is no, which means that 5 is not a solution to that inequality, so I leave the circle open. The next problem on your study guide is to solve the inequality and graph this solution. I notice that my variable n is subtracting 6. The inverse is to add 6. So I add 6 to both sides. Minus 6 plus 6 equals 0. So what's remaining is n is less than or equal to negative 13 plus 6. I notice that my signs are different, so I subtract the numbers and give the answer the sign of the number with the biggest absolute value. In this case, negative 13 is the bigger absolute value and is negative. To graph, I put a 0 and a 7 on my number line. I put a circle at 7. Numbers smaller than 7 extend to the left. Oops, wait a minute, that's negative 7. Let's try this again. Okay, let's start this again. Okay, so here, let's put a circle at negative 7. Numbers smaller than negative 7 extend to the left. Now, is negative 7 equal to negative 7? It sure is. Also, notice if it has an equal to sign, that indicates you should fill in the circle. Solve using the distributive property. Now, you could do this in long multiplication. However, you could break apart the 98 and think of it like this. Now, this is kind of all in your think bubble. This is what's happening in your head. So let's break apart 98 to be 90 plus 8. So 8 times 90 plus 8 times 8. Or you could do what I think would be easier. Instead of doing it as an addition problem, you could do it as a subtraction problem and think 8 times 100 minus 2. I think this is your easiest route for doing mental math. So 8 times 100 is 800. 8 times 2 is 16. 800 minus 16. 800 minus 10 is 790. So minus another 6 would be 784. Okay. Next, using 5d minus 4m plus d minus 2, name the following. Remember, when you're naming these parts on your test or anywhere, you want to rewrite these as adding the opposite if there's any subtraction. Now, I realize that some of you just sneak it in here like this, and that's okay too. What are my coefficients? A coefficient, by definition, is the number before a variable. That would be 5, negative 4, and 1. Don't forget the 1. My like terms, by definition, are terms that have identical variables. In this case, 5D and D, or 1D, have the same variable to the same power. Constants. The definition of a constant is a term without a variable. The only term without a variable in this problem is -2. Next, simplify 8 minus 3 times the quantity 9x plus 7. This is the one that most kids get wrong, so pay really close attention. Most kids want to do one of two things. First, they want to subtract 8 minus 3. 8 minus 3 is not following the order of operations. You cannot subtract before you multiply. Do you see that you have a set of parentheses here? Those set of parentheses indicate multiplication. So you need to multiply first. The second thing kids do wrong is they only distribute or multiply by 3. But that's not what we learned. What we learned in class was that you change this to adding the opposite, so -3, and then you distribute or multiply each term here by -3. So you should get 8 plus -27x plus -21. Then, to simplify, I need to rearrange. That was the distributive property. I'll write that down for you. Then I need to rearrange these terms so that my like terms are by each other. And we learned that that property of rearranging the numbers is called the commutative property. So changing order is the commutative property. And this time it's of addition. Then my next step is to use the associative property to actually add my like terms together. -27x. Now, -21 plus 8 is 13, but it's actually -13 because 21 is bigger, has a bigger absolute value. I went more negative than I went positive. And also, we're getting really good at knowing that -2x plus -13 is the same as -2x minus 13. All right, the next one, use a property to make these easier. Now, I think that it would be easier. The properties help us to do mental math easier. You always want to use, rearrange the numbers or regroup the numbers so that you get a whole number or so you get a multiple of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, something like that. In this case, it would be really slick, if we could rearrange or regroup these and put parentheses around the 1.5 plus 4.5. That's the associative property that allows that, because the associative property changes the grouping, and you get 37 plus 6. 37 plus 6 is 43. The next problem. I think that if I could just switch the order of these two. The reason is that this is 25 hundredths plus 3 and 75 hundredths makes a whole number. Once I have a whole number, it's really easy to add 4 and 88 hundredths to it. So if I had a quarter and $3.75, I would have a total of $4. 4 plus 488, gives me 888. And this was the commutative property that helped me to solve that, and the first one was the associative. All right, one more review slide. In this one, we are solving equations and graphing the solutions on a number line. So you're going to add 4 to both sides. N is greater than 14. On your number line, 0, 14, put a circle here, draw a line to the right. On this one, subtract 10 from both sides. -5 is less than k, but remember, we want our variable on the left to come first. Now, look at your original problem. Do you see that by this sign that the k is bigger than the -5? So if I want to change the order and put k first, I still need to make sure that k is shown as being the bigger number. So make sure that you flip the sign. Then I graph it. I put -5 and 0, put a circle at -5, and I show that the numbers bigger are going to the right. And neither of these two were equal to, they were only greater than, so I didn't fill in either circle. If you have any questions on the first 4 slides that we did or all of these review questions, make sure that you come and ask me sometime yet today or first thing tomorrow before you take your test. Today's learning target is to solve one-step inequalities using multiplication and division. You are going to solve these inequalities in the same way that you would solve equations, and then graph your solutions on a number line. So, if this was an equal sign, if it was 6m equals 12, everybody here would say, oh, I'm going to divide both sides by 6 and say m equals 2. When you're solving an inequality, you do the same thing. The 6 is being multiplied by m. The inverse of multiplication is division. So I divide both sides by 6. M is less than 6. Then, if I was going to graph my solutions on a number line, I would put 0, 6, circle, arrow to the right. Okay? In a similar fashion, there is only one way that solving inequalities is different than solving equations. And that's in this example right here, which is why I put a star next to it. The reason that this one is different is because you are multiplying or dividing by a negative. This is -9 times p. I'm going to divide both sides by -9. P and -4, that stays the same. But when I multiply or divide by a negative, it becomes the opposite. Do you see that 36 becomes an opposite sign? This was positive and now it's negative. So that means that I need to use the opposite sign, because this one also became the opposite. This one was negative and now this one is positive, right? And you know that a negative is always smaller than a positive. So that means I had to switch my sign. So one more time, if you multiply or divide by a negative, meaning the number that I wrote in red right here, if that one is negative, then it flips your inequality sign. It does not matter if the 36 is positive or negative. That does not flip the sign. And then you would graph your solutions on a number line, like always. So here's my number line. Here's -4. Here's 0. I put a circle at -4. Numbers greater are to the right. All right. I would like you to pause the video and give these a try. I'm going to erase some of this stuff so that it's out of your way. Now, keep in mind that the one I have starred here in letter B, that one, do you see that I'm going to have to multiply both sides by a negative? So be careful with that one, because that one is going to flip the sign. Pause the video and give it a try. All right, so when you were trying this, hopefully you saw that this was dividing by 4. Well, I need to do the inverse of dividing by 4 and multiply both sides by 4. M is greater than or equal to 8. Greater than or equal to, I fill in the circle and I draw my arrow to the right. Remember, multiply or divide by a negative switches the inequality sign, because this would have been a negative number and this was positive, and now it's the opposite when I multiply by -3. T is greater than -21. Okay, letter C, the last one on this page. Let's solve this. I start on the right-hand side because that's where my variable is. I see that R is being divided by 7. The inverse of division is multiplying. 35 is less than r. Now, we're not done there because we have to put the variable on the left. Like this is an answer, but it's not in the proper format. So let's put r here and 35 here. Now I need to look at the original sign. When I look at this original sign, I see that it's showing that r is the bigger number. That means that even if I flip it around, that doesn't make r not as big. R is still the bigger number, so I need to make sure I'm showing that. And then on your number line, you're going to graph the solutions. Greater than 35 looks like that. Okay, so in summary, I hope this all displayed. If you multiply, I'm just reading this for you. If you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a positive number, then the symbol stays the same in your answer, like in this one. Do you see that I am dividing both sides by a positive 3? It does not matter that 21 is negative. Negative 7 is greater than m. I have solved it perfectly. Notice that this stayed the same. Now, does it switch because the m is on the other side? Yeah, this isn't in proper format, right? And so then for proper format, we would say this, like we learned before. And then we would say, oh, the negative 7 is bigger. Okay? On the other hand, if you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, then the symbol flips over the inequality sign. Okay, I don't know if this one is in your notes or not. Let me take a quick second to look. T over negative 4 is greater than 7. It is in there. Okay. Oops. Sorry about that. I don't know why it's wanting to delete on me. So t divided by negative 4 is greater than or equal to 7. To solve that problem, I need to multiply both sides by negative 4. The moment that I am multiplying or writing a negative number there, that should remind me to quickly remember to switch that sign, because the multiplying by a negative makes the sign opposite of what it was. It changes it from positive to negative or negative to positive. So t is less than or equal to negative 28. Then I graph it on a number line. Here's 0, here's negative 28. Greater than or less than or equal to, I fill it in, and I draw an arrow to the left. Okay. Pause the video and try the next 3 problems. Then hit continue when you're ready to compare your answers. Here I notice that x is being multiplied by 4. So I am going to divide both sides by 4. X is greater than 10. When I graph this on a number line, it should look like that. In the next one, this one is probably the trickiest one that we're going to see. Oh, maybe not. No, that's not true. I thought it was something else. I see that we have m times 3. We're going to divide both sides by 3, and I'm going to get negative 7 is greater than m. At this point, please do not leave it like this. Also, notice I did not switch the inequality sign because the 3 is positive. It does not matter if the typed number in the original problem is negative, only if the number I write is negative. So now I need to put it in proper format. When I look at this problem, I see that the negative 7 is the bigger number based on that sign. So if I want the m to be first, I still need to indicate that negative 7 is bigger. Put a circle at negative 7. Numbers less than negative 7 go to the left. Lastly, I'm dividing by negative 9. Do you see I just wrote a negative 9? When you're writing a negative number down like that, that's when you flip the sign. So I write the sign right away as soon as I realize what's happening. 36 divided by negative 9 is negative 4. Now, so it did cause me to flip the sign when you compare this sign to this sign. Then I'm not done though, because that's not in proper format. I want the variable first. When I look at this, I see that the bigger number is t. So I switch it like this. T is greater than -4. This is my answer. All right, an elevator can carry up to 2,500 pounds. Suppose the weight of an average adult is 150 pounds. At most, how many average size adults can safely ride the elevator at this time? So we're going to let X represent the number of adults. In here it's saying the number of adults times 150 pounds is less than or equal to 2,500 pounds. So let's read this one more time, make sure we understand it, and then let's write our equation. An elevator can carry up to 2,500 pounds. Suppose the weight of the average adult is 150 pounds. At most, how many average-sized adults can safely ride the elevator at this time? Well, X is going to represent the number of adults. Times 150 pounds each needs to be less than or equal to 2,500 pounds. Now I can solve this using the strategies and processes I've learned today. X is multiplying by 150, so I'm going to divide both sides by 150. Then I'm going to take 2,500 and divide it by 150, and I get 16.7. That's rounded. So I would say at most, if I say 17 adults, that's over the limit. So you need to think about this in terms of, well, we're talking about an average adult, so that means it's a person. You can't have a fractional person. So when it says how many adults can go on there, I would say less than or equal to 16 people can ride the elevator. All right, let's try this one. Oh, maybe we already did this one. All right, let's try this one. T divided by -4 is greater than or equal to 7. You should multiply both sides by -4. T is less than or equal to -28. Then on a number line, here's 0, here's -28. Less than or equal to, let's fill that in. And there you go. All right, give your homework a try. Here it is. And if you have some questions, make